Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 100th episode of Sunday Night Live here at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk in Edinburgh, in Scotland, in the United Kingdom, which is still part of Europe for at least the next few weeks. Who knows? Anyway, wanting to keep politics as ever out of the show, but I am absolutely choked up with a cold. My wife has been absolutely floored by an extremely aggressive cold. She's been tucked up in bed for like most of the week and is only just really back up on her feet today, really. And I'm starting to come down with it as well. Started this afternoon. And so you'll have to forgive all the snuffles and snorts and all of that business. And maybe a sneezing fit might happen. Hopefully not, but you just never know. So hopefully everything will be fine tonight. But yes, this is the 100th episode of the show. And I want to say a really big thank you to everybody who has been with me through every single one of those 100 episodes. You guys are amazing. And if you are brand new to the show and you've never seen what I do here before, welcome. And you'll find that in the chat there is a very, very, very friendly and awesome bunch of people who will, even if I'm not directly able to answer your question because I'm answering another one, they will definitely help you out and answer some of your questions as well, because they are an extremely helpful bunch. But yes, if you are new to the show, welcome. And tonight, because it's the 100th show, I don't really have anything really special planned. I had thought going up towards Sunday during the week this week, I thought, I had lots of ideas of what I could do to really celebrate the 100th show. But really, I am absolutely floored with a cold, and I've had to pick up the slack whilst my wife has been floored with it. So I haven't had time to really invest a whole lot of time in coming up with great ideas to celebrate. So anyway, what we'll do tonight is I have something I want to talk about first, and then we'll get to your questions, and I may well play some piano as well later. So towards the end of the show, kind of a bit like we've been doing in Songwriting Simplified on Wednesdays over on Jonny's channel. If you've been there, you guys have been suggesting an emotion or an idea that you would like me to try and play on the piano. So some people have said, hey, play something really joyful. So I play something really joyful. And then somebody says, play something really dark, and or a romantic thing. So I've done a few of those as well. So if you are up for that, we can do that towards the end of the show as well. And maybe that will be kind of a worthy celebration of 100 episodes. So thinking back over those 100 episodes, the quality of the picture and the audio of this show, if you go back through the archive, you'll see that maybe a couple of years ago when we started this thing, quality was pretty poor. And some of you have been there all the way through and have put up with the lower quality pixture, particularly when it freezes and you hear me speaking, but I'm totally frozen, or it pixelates, and the audio would sometimes get garbled. You guys been there through thick and thin, through all of that, and still found what I do valuable, and I really, really appreciate you guys incredibly much. And I thank you actually so much that, we have more people coming to Sunday Night Live than ever before. I would really like to see this show grow to a point where we have, 40, 50 people here every Sunday night. That would be epic. That would be amazing. So those of you that are my regular folks, and even if you are new and you really like this show, please do go and tell folks that you think this show would be really useful for and valuable for, and get them watching the show, get them subscribed to the channel and hitting that notification bell so they know when the next Sunday Night Live is and when my next regular videos go out as well. So yes, if you are up for that, absolutely do go and spread the word about the show. It'd be great if we could regularly be getting 50 people here. That would be epic. So I'm going to go see who we have here in the chat real quick, and then we'll get to the main meat and veg of the show. So Thomas says, good morning. Good morning, my friend. And James Geo is here. He says, congratulations on your 100th show. Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. Ken says, congrats on 100. Thank you, Ken, for being a moderator. I really appreciate all you do, all the help that you give. At the moment, I have Ken and Mike Neighbor as my moderators, and they just basically keep an eye on, spam and stuff when it comes along, and people that post inappropriate messages and that kind of stuff. So they are on top of that kind of thing. So I appreciate that. John Lake says, first thumbs up. Yes, good for you. Thank you, mate. John says he doesn't look 100. Yeah, I feel it today, I tell you. That's for sure. I do feel it. David SJ says, evening all, 100. Nice round number. It most certainly is. It most certainly is. I'm very... Hang on, why is this not scrolling? What's gone wrong here? Why are we not scrolling down the chat? Let's see. Greg Thomas is here. He's saying hello to everybody. And Kyle Jedruziak is here. Just Bob is here. Tim Bond is here. Rainer is here. My good friend all the way over in Germany is here. And I have to say, Rainer, I saw your pictures on your profile today. You have met somebody who is of great interest to me. A guy called Chris Hine, who developed things like Chris Hine horns and Chris Hine strings and those kind of libraries. You are one lucky dude, because I think Chris Hine is an incredible guy, and the products he creates are outstanding. The Chris Hine horns is unbelievable. I don't have it yet, but I have recently been working with a guy the other side of town in his studio, and he has the Chris Hine horns, and he was showing just how powerful that thing is, and it really is like having a real horn section. The articulations are breathtaking. So Chris Hine horns is superb, and the fact that you got to meet the guy is even better, Rainer. So kudos to you, my friend. Let's see. And you're saying congratulations as well. Thank you very much. And let's see, Bobby Booth is here. Booth Mixing and Mastering Services says, hello, congratulations to 100. Bobby Booth is one of those guys who has been around since I first started doing my show, when it was pretty awful, and he has always been here. He pretty much never misses a show, which is outstanding. So, Bobby, thank you so much for your support and your participation. I really appreciate it and value it very, very greatly. And your input actually into suggesting changes to the way that I do the show, and also the changes that are coming up in November as well are partly because of your suggestions and your ideas. So I really appreciate all that you've done for me. Thank you so much. Let's see who else is here. Mika says, hello all, congrats on the 100th show. Thank you, Mika. Appreciate it. Appreciate your support as well. Just Bob is here. Wood Beast is one of the original gang, and DDD Entertainment, she is also one of the original members of the show. So thank you so much for being here and helping me celebrate 100. Mika says, no more glorious mono. Yes, absolutely. Gosh, those were the days when everything was in glorious mono and pretty horrible sounding. And the chat has just dumped, which is a shame because I want to kind of get through to as many people as I can. Kyle says, I generally stay off video as I have a face made for radio. Yeah, me too. I kind of thought that as well, actually, about myself. But I was persuaded to do this. I'm trying to remember who the original people were that persuaded me that I should do a live stream show. And I didn't really think I could do such a thing. But you guys have just kept on encouraging me along the way. And hopefully this show is getting better and better and more valuable for you guys. I appreciate it. And who else is here? Deer Creek. That would be Chris Harwood is here. Good to see you, my friend. I am glad that you're here as well. And Woodby says, I have and always promote your stream, which is fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, you've been around since the very early days, and you always send me... Hang on, I've got an itching ear. You always send me some very encouraging emails, which I find very, very helpful. Thank you. Alrighty, we're getting through, and we'll get started in just a minute. And Bobby with the first donation of this 100th show. Congratulations. Thank you so much, my friend. He doesn't actually say anything, but he's donated $2, which is very, very appreciated. Raina says there is more coming with Chris Hine. You did an interview with him, which is awesome. I look forward to hearing all about that for sure. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Recording Studio 9. That's my good friend Vajay. How are you, my friend? He's all the way down in Australia. And he's probably feeling if he's in I don't know, Vajay, if you're into cricket or not, but I'm sure as an Australian citizen, you're probably feeling just a wee tiny bit smug because Australia retained the Ashes at the end of the 4th Test today after England lost by 185 runs. I am Scottish, but I support the England cricket team because they are a test playing team here in the UK, and Scotland aren't yet. Scotland only play the 1-day games. We don't play the 5-day games at the moment, but hopefully next year, next season, that might change. Hopefully. But yes, that would be super awesome if Scotland started playing test matches. Not that we would win very often, but they would have my support as well. But yes, England lost today, and Australia now lead the series 2-1 with 1 match to go. So even if the series is tied, so it's 2-2, if England win in the final test match, Australia, by virtue of already holding the Ashes trophy, would continue to hold it. That's kind of the way it works. And then England will go down to Australia in our winter time and try and get it back in a series down there. So, and we haven't won down there since 2010-11, which is a bit of a shame. But yes, Thatcher says, I do hear crickets. Yes. And I'm sure every bar and pub in Australia right now is extremely happy. And they deserve it, actually. They were definitely the best team. Woodby says sports and politics. Yes, I am passionate about both. I love politics and I love sport. And I love making music as well. So anyway, let's see. And Thomas with 50 PHP. I think that's Filipino. Is that right? Filipino currency. I'm not sure what the exchange rate is on that. But thank you very, very much, Thomas, for that. I appreciate that immeasurably. Mika says, just say no to sticky wickets. Yes, absolutely. I have played on my fair share of sticky wickets as a former cricketer. I used to play a lot of cricket in my youth and in my 20s. Okay, so now I think I have got to the bottom of the chat, and if I've missed you out, please do say so in the chat, and I will make sure to mention you. Okay, And my eyes are starting to stream, which is no fun. Okay, so let's get into the subject for tonight, which is actually really simple, really straightforward, and involves nothing technical. And it's something I thought about because it's something I don't think we do very often. And I think when we are working on our music, we don't think about this really important concept. And this really important concept is perspective. Making sure that you maintain your objectivity and your sense of perspective all the way through your production process, from first starting writing the song to digital release, hitting that button to get it out there to the world. Maintaining your objectivity and your perspective. And there are several ways in which you can do that. And I'm going to only address one of them in particular, because I think it's at this particular phase in the production process where we tend to not do this, and we tend to not even think about it. But if you think about doing this, and you think about applying this little, it is just a little technique, I think it will help you maintain that objectivity and help maintain that sense of perspective. And I call this checkpoints. What do I mean by checkpoints? Well, when you are running a long distance race, like a 10K or a half marathon, or indeed a full marathon, or something even longer than that, you have to, in order to make sure that you have a balance of energy across the whole duration of the race, you have to pace yourself, and you have to tick miles off. If you're doing a marathon, you would tick each mile off as they come and go, yes, I've achieved mile 1 at this pace. You glance at your watch and you go, okay, I've achieved this mile at that pace. I want to do the next mile at this pace. And so that's how you would go through the race until, maybe you get to, if you're doing a marathon, you get to that halfway point to 13 miles, and you start to get close to hitting that wall. So what do you do as you're going through your race is you're not just making a note of, hey, I've just gone past the 13th mile. Great, I'm on to mile 14. You look at your pace, you look at how fast you're going, you look at how what the split was, what the split time for that mile was. So you can check yourself. Okay, am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Do I need to up my tempo a little bit, or do I need to hold back a little bit so that my next mile is going to be balanced? So I think this applies just as well to when we are mixing in particular. I mean, I think it applies to every other phase, but certainly I think when we are mixing, we think about this a lot less than I think we should. Myself included. I will regularly forget to do this. So here's how I think it applies to when we're mixing. And that is, we check off in 10 or 15 minute blocks. So how do we do that? So I would advocate setting a timer on your phone that gives you a clear signal that time has come to an end. So maybe set it for 10 or 15 minutes. Personally, I prefer 10. And then what I do, when I get to 10 minutes, I stop whatever it is I am working on. Whatever it is I'm doing in the mix, I stop. And in Studio One, I go and hit the master button, power button for plugins. So it turns everything off. And I listen to the whole song, and every 2 bars as I'm listening to the song, I'm flicking between on and off. And what I do during that process is I'm making notes of what is, kind of where the mix, how far the mix has come from nothing to where it is at that current point, and what's working, what isn't working, what's sticking out, what's not sticking out, what I need to do next in this next 10-minute chunk. And by doing that, I think it helps me, and hopefully it would help you guys as well, to maintain a sense of where you are in your mix, where you are in your progress, and whether it actually sounds good. We can fool ourselves by leaving it for a long time, we get caught up in the rabbit holes of EQing something. We spend ages on this kick drum or on this particular guitar, and the guitar sounds epic, but as soon as we drop it back in the mix, it doesn't sound epic. It sounds pretty... it starts fighting with other elements. Oh, now I need to go and change this other element to fit with that. And you start kind of flitting around from one thing to another, to another, to another. And you're caught in a dizzy whirl of feverish work on your mix. And it doesn't, you think it sounds really great. But as soon as you turn all those plugins off, you'll know whether you're making progress or not, and whether it's actually sounding good. So to me, pressing this button is a reality check. So this is kind of what I'm advocating that you guys try out, is just set a timer for 10 or 15 minutes, and then when you're in Studio One, turn off that master plugin button. If you don't know where that is, I can show you real quick where that is. Hang on just a sec. Where's my mouse pointer gone? There it is. Let's jump over to Studio One, and I can quickly show you. If you don't know where it is, this is where it is. It's at the top of the mixer. You can do this actually outside of the mixer, so you can close the mixer, and the button is here at the bottom of the screen. But if you've got the mixer open, it's at the top of the mixer. So every 10 or 15 minutes, stop what you're doing and play the track. Find a good spot, like maybe a verse going into a chorus where there's a lot going on in the arrangement of the song, and hit play and then flip between on and off. So something like this.
Let's do something drastic. In the morning we'll never feel.
Okay, so that's with everything switched on. And this is with everything switched off. Same spot.
Let's do something drastic. In the morning we'll never feel.
And back on.
Where were you on Black Wednesday? Stood for hours outside the Northern Rock. Still hungover from Tuesday. Must we take this banker's cross? In God we trust.
And so you notice there that, yes, when I engage everything gets a bit louder. Now, obviously, louder can fool your ears into thinking louder is better. So what I'm listening for is when I've got the plugins off, I'm listening for elephants. I'm not listening for elephants at all. I'm listening for elements of the mix that I know that on certain media like earbuds are going to be crucially important, or the car speaker system is going to be crucially important. That if I get these things right and they sound great on earbuds and on a car speaker system, then these elements are going to be great overall on any medium that you're playing it on. So I'm listening for the vocal, and I'm listening to the kick drum, and I'm listening to the snare drum, and maybe I'm listening to whatever's providing the chords. In this case, it's mostly Fender Rhodes electric piano. That's kind of the main chord element in this song, and the bass guitar. So those 5 elements, that's what I'm listening for. And I'm listening for, is that, does anything really stick out in the mid-range when I engage my plugins, or have I got that right? Or is the low end coming through nicely? And, those kind of things, those are the things that I'm thinking about when I'm doing this A-B thing. Because, you can go along and you can get very, very used to a bump at 2K. After about 10 minutes, that bump at 2K is not an issue for your ears anymore. You switch off to it and you don't notice it's there until you hit that button, and then you go, oh, hang on a minute. There's a lot of 2K in those guitars. Those guitars are really harsh at that point. And so you need to go and kind of maybe correct the EQ moves that you made earlier. That kind of thing. That's what I'm talking about And that's why I think it's valuable to do this like every 10 or 15 minutes before your ears start to fatigue and before your brain starts to disengage from the overall perspective of what you are trying to achieve, the objective that you have for this mix, what you are trying to accomplish. And you can combine this with using your reference track. Now, this happens to be my song, so there isn't really a reference track for this because I know what I want this song to sound like. But if I were to, if I were to give this track to you guys to mix, I would maybe suggest, listening to something like, something Steely Dan or something Tower of Power or, something like that, something smoothish, maybe something that's got some jazz elements to it, and use that as your reference track and compare what your mix of my song with that professional mix and, kind of combine this kind of turning all your plugins on and off and A being your mix with the raw tracks with using your reference track as well. So combine those three things and hopefully doing those things will help you maintain that sense of objectivity and that sense of perspective. It's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard to maintain that objectivity. And some people think that, it's not all that incredibly important. I think it is. Keeping that sense of perspective about your work, I think is pretty important. Otherwise, you can just be chasing your tail and you can get lost in what you're doing. And then, you can spend hours and hours and hours working on the mix. And then, you maybe come back the next day and you go, what on earth was I doing? Those are the kind of scenarios you want to avoid, where you come back to the mix the next day and go, what the heck was I doing? What was I thinking? And you have to, delete everything and start again. You want to avoid that as much as possible, in my view. So that's kind of where my thinking was on this whole concept, on this whole idea. So there you go. That's my perspective. Talking about perspective, there it is. So let's see. Yeah, Deacon Blues would be a good reference track for this song. Yes, I agree, Just Bob. It's a great song. Actually, yes. And the use of horns, I guess, although there's no horns in this song, but certainly the groove and the vibe is fairly close to that. Yeah. Elephants of the Mix. Yep. I like that too. Mika says, good topic. My 2 cents. Objectivity isn't all that it's made out to be. One aspect of great groundbreaking music is the lack of objectivity and the go your own way, damn the torpedoes approach. Yes, I kind of agree with that to some degree, Mika, actually. Yeah, I think you're right. But I think for as much as you want to be creative and for as much as you want to innovate and, create a fresh sound that nobody's really heard before, or you want to bring something to your song that nobody else is doing. And so that means there is no real perspective from that point of view because you're pioneering, you're doing something nobody else has done before. By the same token, I think that becomes your frame of reference. That becomes your objectivity. And so you want to kind of keep with that. And so when you're innovating a song and you're innovating a sound, when by the time you get to the mixing phase, you are perhaps even using some unusual techniques that you wouldn't maybe perhaps think of, some really creative routing, some creative use of ambient effects maybe, or, kind of reversing things and reversing reverbs, reversing delays, those kind of things, those kind of special effects techniques. You might be doing some of those kind of things, and yeah, those things kind of break the rules. And they break the conventions. But I still think you can get your head into a tailspin if you're not kind of checking, is this appropriate? Is this good? Or does it just sound good now, but tomorrow morning won't sound good? You know what I mean? And that's what happens when you come back into the studio the next day with fresh ears, fresh mind, fresh eyes as well. And you listen through to that mix. That's your perspective point, because you come back in fresh, having not heard it for several hours. Now, obviously, you don't want to take 3 weeks over a mix or 3 months over a mix necessarily. Especially if you're being paid to do the mix. You kind of want to get through and get to the end result that the client is absolutely bowled over by as quickly as possible, my opinion. So you maximize what you're being paid. Especially if you are one of these guys like I am that works on a per song basis rather than an hourly rate. You kind of want to get through it quickly. So that's why I think this little 10-minute checkpoint idea is a good one. But yeah. Peg would be another good choice there, Ken. Let's see. Mika said, imagine Pink Floyd's Run Like Hell with the effects muted. Ouch. Yes. Yep. But I mean, that's I guess how you get that. You get to see how far you've come with your mix. Kind of like checking off those mile points. Hey, this sounds really, really great. Let's compare it to where we started from. And is this still going in the direction we want it to go in? Let's see. Carl says, my brother left me a Ludwig club kit. I had nowhere to put it, decided to gift it to a friend who'll use it with the understanding that he passes it on to someone when he's done with it. That's a great, great thing to do. And those are great drum sets. Absolutely. Carl says it got used on 3 tracks of his new record, which was just released. Well, that's awesome. And I bet they sound great. Absolutely. You can, it's very hard to get a bad sound out of Ludwig's, to be honest. They are outstanding instruments. Alrighty, I'm just going to take a quick drink break. Relativity is in play, absolutely, wherever there's pay, and that rhymes. I'm sure you can make a jingle out of that, Mika. Chris says, why don't more people mix as they record? Sometimes, in my opinion, it helps you to visualize a final effort and build the production, obviously skipping super special effects, etc. That's a good question. That's a really good question, actually, Chris. And I think when I was making this song, that we've just been listening to, I did kind of like do a rough static mix during the process of recording the song. I wanted to make sure I could hear X element, Y element, and all of that. And maybe actually, when you're working on a song and you come up with production ideas that require certain use of ambient effects like reversed reverbs and that kind of stuff, that kind of is, I suppose, a part of kind of proto-mixing before you get to the mix phase itself. And I think you're right. I think there are times when, everything does kind of blend into one a little bit, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. If that's the way you work and it works well for you, pursue it. Absolutely pursue it. You don't necessarily have to have this boxed approach to music production. I write my song. I record my song. I mix my song. I master my song. I release my song. You don't have to do it like that. Some people find it helpful to do it like that. But I think you're right. Sometimes it doesn't do any harm to kind of, hey, I'm going to do a little bit of mixing whilst I'm recording, and then when I get to the mixing phase, hey, you know what? I'm left with less to do. There's less to do because we've kind of committed to the sound up front. Yes, absolutely. Just Bob says, did you get my email about Skype type interviews from last week? Yes, I did. And it is a terrific suggestion. And I have a very cool way in which I'm going to apply that idea of yours. Not necessarily involving Skype. I have found something that will do the same job, possibly a little bit more excitingly and maybe a little bit better. But yes, the idea that you have is a really, really good one. And you are going to see it actually implemented come November when we launch the whole new thing. I don't have a name for it yet. At the moment, I'm calling it the whole new thing. But yes, this new thing includes new website, new membership site that's coming as well, and a whole bunch of new content that you guys will not have seen before, that I've been working on for the last few weeks, and I'm going to be working on for the next sort of 7-8 weeks. A whole bunch of new stuff that's going to go into the members area. So if you want access to it, you need to become a member when I launch. And for those of you that are on my email list, you will get a sneak preview and you'll get the chance to jump in and become members before the launch day. If you want, if you wish, if you'd like to do that, that will be available to you. So launch is kind of going to be around about the first week of November. I haven't got a specific set date yet, but I will have. And when I have that specific set date, I will announce it to you guys. And just Bob's idea of Skype type interview things, yes, that's going to be a part of what we do in the members area. Yes, I have found a platform that will do kind of what you're suggesting, but we won't be using Skype to do it. So that is very cool. Thank you for that. Yes, Batchy, you're quite correct. I'm going to use that. That's what I'm going to try out, because we used that on one of your live streams, and it worked so well. I was really impressed with it. So that's kind of what I'm going to use. So thank you for introducing me to that. I just need to look at how much it costs to have an account there. Chris says, in the old days with limited tape tracks, you had to mix as you recorded if you were bouncing tracks. Yes, you absolutely did. Yep, you absolutely did. You had to commit to a sound up front. So yeah, so quite oftentimes when you're recording, you were kind of, back then you were kind of regarded more as a balancing engineer than a mixing engineer, because that's kind of what you did. You balanced everything together and then you bounced those tracks. So, you might have 7 or 8, maybe you've got like a bunch of guitar tracks that have used up, if you've got an 8-track tape machine, you've used up your tracks. So you kind of commit to the sound, you commit to how you want them to sound in the final mix, and then you bounce them. And you're using up just 1 track after that. Or 2, maybe. Maybe you've bounced them down to stereo to 2 tracks, maybe. And you've got some guitars on the left, some guitars on the right. So, yes, absolutely, that's exactly how you have to do it. You don't have to do that now. But you can do if you choose to. If you choose to do that as a limitation, as a self-imposed limitation, go for it. Chris says, I like to mix as I record with the expression, use the studio as an instrument. Yeah, absolutely. I don't see why that shouldn't be the case. Bob says, very cool. Haven't checked my email, been really busy, but thanks for the update. Yes, thanks for the idea as well. Ken says, if you do the piano motion things at the end of the show, would you mention what key or mode you choose to get to that emotion? I will after I've done it, yes. I could maybe do that. As I tend to kind of, smacking the mic again. I tend to think on my feet when I'm improvising, so I don't really think about what I'm doing until my fingers actually start to play. But yeah, certainly after we've done that, I can certainly do that. And Vacha says, I limit my tracks to 25, keeping it simple. That's great. That's a great little limitation to have on yourself. Bobby says, that's what I've been waiting for. You have. You've been so very, very patiently waiting, because you were one of the early adopters when I first broached the idea a long time ago. And the people I was building it with, it kind of all fell apart, unfortunately. We ran into a technical brick wall that we couldn't get over, and then it kind of all fell apart after that. So I'm now building this myself on a new platform. So website will be moving over to the new platform and will look completely different. New logos, new branding, everything. Everything's going to be completely different. And as I say, the membership site will all be part of that. And so those of you that are on my email list, I will be migrating you over to a new email list in November. So I'll be gradually doing that. Let's see. And you guys that are on my email list, when I migrate you, you won't have to do anything. It'll just happen. Let's see. John Lake says, I used to dream about a 24-track tape machine. Yes, I have used 24-track tape machines. Way back in the 1980s when I got my start, and I was a session drummer. I was a house session drummer in a studio down south in England, and that's kind of what really got me into the recording process, into actually recording, not just being a house drummer that played on a lot of tracks, on a lot of songs for various artists that recorded at that studio, but really, getting into understanding the whole recording process and how things went down to tape. And I asked so many questions of recording engineers. I harassed them, and I did the same with the mix engineers as well. I harassed them about, how does this EQ work? How does this compressor work? And, kind of what is it you're, kind of what are you hoping that those things will do to the sound? And so those are the kind of questions I asked, and that's what really got me into recording and mixing. So, we're talking way back in the 1980s, mid to late 1980s, when I really got into it. So, yeah. And I unfortunately cannot remember the manufacturer of that 24-track tape machine. But later down the line, the next studio I worked at had one of those 3M digital machines, which was like something out of Star Trek. It was awesome at the time using that, and kind of being involved in these early digital recordings. It was great fun. It was a great time, learning all these new techniques, and then of course integrating programmed and computer elements into live songs as well. That was something new for me, and I was totally hooked at that point. And I was just like, yep, this is what I'm going to spend my life doing, playing on people's records, recording people, and mixing their records. That's kind of what I've always, that was it for me. I was sold on that idea at that time. D Sound Recording Studio says, off topic a bit, Studio One has anything similar to VST Connect in the pipeline? I don't know, because I don't use pipeline. But I'm fairly sure that there are videos out there on pipeline and how all that works. I know my good friend Marcus Huskins. Go and check his channel out, by the way. It is completely, totally, and utterly awesome. And he is without doubt my favorite Canadian, and I have Canadian relatives. So Marcus is awesome. He's a very, very, very gifted teacher and communicator. And he's probably the person to ask about pipeline, because I don't have any external gear. I don't have any outboard gear at all, so I don't use it. in particular. So there you go. Vancha says the more tracks, the more complicated a mess of a song for a pop chart songs. Baker's 2 dozen. Yes. You know what? I know what you mean. I was working maybe about a month ago on an R&B track. I was playing. It was one of these kind of like slow, smooth R&B tracks, and I was playing fretless bass for the guy, and I was over in his studio because I was doing a number of other things for this song as well. I did some backup vocals. I played a bit of flugelhorn. I even played a little bit of clarinet. We blended some clarinets with some saxophones, and it sounded great. So I played a little bit of clarinet on this particular song. But I think the track count was something like 130. But, they weren't all playing all at once. There were kind of like things that just kind of came in and out of the arrangement. There were strings here, there was horns here, there was a brass. I think there was elements of a brass band here in one section of the song. Plus, there were all sorts of vocal effects going on as well. And I think they had 5 or 6 guitars. And before you knew it, the whole thing kind of added up to about 130 tracks. But it. The end result of the song was it didn't sound like it was 130 tracks. It sounded just like a relatively standard R&B group with maybe augmented by a few extra elements, but it didn't really sound like it could be cluttered. Now, I realize that the more tracks of audio you've got, the more of a challenge it becomes to mix that, because you need to carve space out for everything for every element of that mix, with EQ, with compression, with automation, and all of that fun stuff, and using some ambient effects like reverbs and things to push things back in the mix and bring certain other elements forward. So lots of tracks of audio can be a challenge, for sure. But yeah, I totally get, the 24 track mentality, and Graham Cochran has talked about this on a couple of videos I think he's done, where he's talked about that whole idea. And Deer Creek is the same. He says he hardly ever exceeds 25. Yeah, absolutely. I think you're quite right. I mean, what you guys are kind of talking about here is the whole idea of less being more, and I agree. Certainly, the bulk of my work is in jazz and in other acoustic music and a little bit of world music as well. So some Latin music and some more exotic folk music from different parts of the world I work in, and it's all acoustic stuff. There's hardly anything synthesized or electronic. It's mostly completely organic acoustic music that I work in. And certainly with a lot of that music, it is a case of less is more. Because, you create lots of space in the music by having a few elements rather than swamping it with lots and lots of elements. Let's see. What else do we have? Kyle says, when I first took a recording class, used to go early to play with the gear. After I was done with the classes, the owner got smart and started to charge to play with the equipment. Yeah. Hate it when that happens. Let's see. D-Sound says VST Connect is connecting players via video and audio and recording out Studio One artist. Right. Mika says VST Connect is an internet-based collaboration tool. Pipeline is a hardware integration plugin. Yes. So maybe the two don't jive. I think it might be the case that the two don't jive, and particularly with Studio One Artist, unless you've got like that VST add-on that you need to get for third-party plugins and that kind of stuff. But I'm not entirely sure that VST Connect would jive well. And And I certainly don't think it would work with Pipeline. I don't know, though. Lollipop Guild is here. And she says, "Hey, fellas and ladies, I missed most of the show. Boo, was busy writing a song with an out-of-state friend." Well, you know what? Songwriting is important. You were being creative, which is the whole point of this show. But welcome, Lollipop Guild, to my 100th Sunday Night Live. And we've only got, about 10 minutes left of the show. But I hope you find these 10 minutes insanely valuable. And you can always go back after the show's done. And it's uploaded to YouTube as a video. You can always go back and watch the first wee bit of the show that you've missed. Chris says, to save money for groups, I used to record straight to 2-track, no overdubs, obviously no mixing. So just a stereo track, play, and then give them tape for pressing. Yeah, that's definitely a way to do it. But I guess you gotta kind of mix. You literally do have to mix as you go if it's going straight down to 2-track tape. I've worked with bands like that too. In a studio in London that I worked in for a wee while, like a couple of years I worked there, and they had 50s rockabilly bands come in fairly frequently to record, and we would record 8-10 songs in a day. And everything would just go down straight to 2-track tape, straight through the console into the tape. So we would rehearse. We'd maybe do a couple of hours of rehearsals in the morning, and that's where I got the console set. I did the mix whilst they were rehearsing, and then when we hit record, everything went straight through the console to 2-track tape, and that was it. You know, the song, the record was done, and we just sent the tape off for mastering. You know, that was it. 10 songs done in a day, a 10-song album done in a day. Easy peasy. So sometimes that is a great way to work. I figure in 2 or 3 years, live online collabs will be a lot further on. Yeah, hopefully, because the biggest problem with internet collaboration at the moment is latency, because it has to go through your internet connection, and it has to go through your servers and everything else before it gets to your computer, and then it has to be processed by your computer via your ASIO drivers and all of that. And you know, that can take a second or two. I mean, Jonny and I tried something on a Songwriting Simplified, I think maybe a year ago, where I actually tried to play a track from here into his Studio One. So he routed Skype straight into Studio One as an input for me to be able to record from here straight into his song. And it ended up, I think we were about 5 seconds. The latency was about 5 seconds at best. So it didn't really work. And I think until that is narrowed down to, 10, 15 milliseconds at the most, and I think we're a long way off from that, really. But certainly being able to send files in almost real time, you can certainly do that with something like Dropbox or WeTransfer. If your internet connection is insanely fast, like gigabit or something like that, then you can send files via Dropbox almost instantly and import them into Studio One. So I mean, that's how I do the bulk of my session work, to be honest. From here, I'll record a bass track or a keyboard track or a vocal track, and I just drag it straight to the folder in Dropbox. I just grab the event, drag it straight to the Dropbox, let it release my mouse, and off it goes. And usually within 2, 3, 4 seconds, it's in the folder, and the person I'm working with can extract it and get it into their DAW of choice, whatever that is. So, you can do it in almost real time. And Jonny and I, again, we made a video a couple of years ago where we showed that. It might have been 3 years ago that we did that. He and I really ought to get together and do an updated version of that, especially now the internet is just generally a lot faster now. Let's see. Lollipop Guild says, for people with no tech skills, can anyone recommend a quality portable recording option for a guitar player? There are plenty. Depends whether they want to record if they want to use a microphone on their amp, or whether they want to go direct. Yeah. Or, get one of those hard disk recorders that you can get and just plug straight in and, hit record and start to play. You can certainly do it that way. If you want to do it without the use of a DAW and an interface and all of that. That would be something I'd recommend. Or if you're really wanting to go, just get something down on a 2-track stereo file, then you could get one of those Zoom recorders with the 2 mics, stereo mics in XY configuration. Find the right spot, do some test recordings, find the right spot where that mic should go, and just hit record and play. And then hit stop when you're done, and then the file is created. That's what I would recommend. Deer Creek says light fiber cables, audio transmission won't cut it. Correct. Zoom, yes. Mika says, I'll never work in the USA. The US has the most expensive and slowest internet in the developed world, and some underdeveloped nations have faster than the US. In Netherlands, 100 gigs a second in every home. Yeah, that's true. You guys are quite considerably ahead of most of the world, even here in the UK, although gigabit lines are becoming much more common here. Definitely. We are coming to the end of the show, folks. We've got 3 minutes left, so I am ready, if you guys are, to play something. If you guys are up for that. And it doesn't have to be on Fender Rhodes. I can find the appropriate sound for whatever it is you want. Okay. Deer Creek says, even some action cams work okay if you're close to the source and you get video too. Yeah, something like a GoPro might do it. I'm going to take a quick drink break whilst you post your emotions or whatever it is that you want me to play. And we'll finish the show that way. And for those of you that are interested, I am product placement, Fender mug. I am drinking lemon and honey. And it's hot lemon and honey. And it's the only thing keeping me going right now. Carl says good night. Chris says play 100 bars, 100 beats a minute. Yeah, we'll be all here all night if we do that. Rika says, congratulations on the 100th. May there be many hundreds more. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Anyone want me to play something that is not copyrighted? Mika says, how about celebratory music? Oh, I could certainly do that. Yeah, I could certainly do that. Let's go for something concert grand, shall we? Now, what kind of key? Maybe E flat. E flat's nice and, or maybe B flat. B flat's nice and celebratory, isn't it? There you go. Kind of a fanfare-ish. You guys are talking about what this guy should use to record. Yeah. Yeah, you can do it with the phone. Play some party music. Play some ecstasy. or whimsical confusion. Oh wow, you guys are really stretching here. Hang on. Let me just unsnag myself. Let's see. What was it? What was the first one? Party music. Let's see if I can get away with this. That's probably about as much as I'm going to get away with. Mika says, now I'm cracking open a beer. That's awesome. I'm sure you guys recognize what that song was. And that's probably about as much as I'll ever get away with playing without getting a nice for copyright. Get a bizarre Nord sound. Oh, something bizarre? Okay. There you go. That was relatively bizarre. Nord sounds. Nord sounds. Let's find something else. This one is called A Little Bit of All. I don't know what it sounds like, really. I don't really use this one. There we go. Dietrich says, thank you, Jonny Lipsham. I would love to see any of you guys get a prestigious award before I'm too old to remember what music is. Oh, yeah, that would be awesome. I would love to get some kind of, award. But, you know, who knows? You never know. I'd love to get a Grammy. But you know how hard those are to come by. But let's see. Play something modal like Stella. I could. We're kind of running out of time right now. We're about 5 minutes past. Something that sounds like you're stepping on glass or trying to walk softly. Yeah, I don't think this keyboard would do that. I don't have anything that crunches particularly. Mika says, next week I'll be the 101. Since we've had Dorian play something in Phrygian, Alabama style. Phrygian. There you go, a little bit of fridge. Alrighty, I think we'll wrap it up there. But thank you very much, folks, for joining me on my 100th show. I appreciate it very, very much. I'm actually going to go take a look and see kind of what peak viewership was. I need to scroll down that page. Yeah, they've changed the desktop here. So we've got about 20 in here right now. But it looks like we peaked around about 26, which is pretty cool. I'm very, very pleased with that. It would be nice, as I say, if we can get like up to 50 in a show. That would be great. But there we go, folks. Thanks ever so much for coming out to my show this week. And as I say, I am very, very busy working on a whole bunch of new stuff that's going to go into the new site and into the members area. I will still try and get a regular video out to YouTube every week, whilst I'm in the throes of doing all of that new stuff. So you're going to find that there's a whole ton, and I mean literally a whole ton, of new content, new courses. There's going to be a songwriting course. There's going to be a music theory course. There's going to be courses on mixing. There's going to be courses on EQ, compression, all of that fun stuff. All of those incredibly important techniques and understanding music notation, all of that fun stuff. And there's even going to be a course there on arranging as well. I'm working on one where I'm teaching you to write horn arrangements, string arrangements, different backing vocal styles, and all of that. So all of that's going to go into the new members area, and it's going to be about $15 a month. So if you're interested in that, then please do drop me an email to register your interest. As I say, I'm looking to launch kind of at the beginning of November. And I will certainly be ramping up marketing and advertising this whole thing as we get closer to November, and we will have a very special live stream launching the whole thing. You'll get to see what the website looks like. I will give you a sneak peek behind the doors tour of the members area and show you kind of what is there, and I will be adding to it regularly so that, when you become a member, you get access to everything. You get access to all of the courses that I make, and anything new that I create, I will put up there as well. So anything new you get access to for the $15 a month. But if you don't want to be a member, every single one of my courses will be available for sale at a fixed price. If you just want the courses, you can just do it that way if you really want. But membership is going to be where it is at, so that you get everything for a fixed monthly fee, and anything new that I make, you'll have instant access to. Okay, so I think that will do it for tonight. Thanks a lot, folks, and I will see you on Wednesday over on Jonny Gibe's channel for Songwriting Simplified. See you then. Good night. Good night.